Good evening to all of you. Sri Dushyant Dave, our president, Sri Kailash Basule, our vice president, members of the executive committee, with a special mention of Sri Chandruday Singh, senior advocate, Ms. Anjali Chauhan, fellow members of the Supreme Court Bar Association and my esteemed colleagues. Sri Devashish Baruka, the speaker on this topic, is being interviewed by Sri Abhay Anturkar. Both have knowledge of the present day technology. And Sri Nima Dave, advocate, we appreciate your efforts. Thank you for coordinating this seminar presented on the virtual web by very real and dedicated persons. With great pride and pleasure, we welcome you, all of you, this interesting webinar where the members of the Supreme Court Bar Association and all of you will be introduced to operate and work your office with less paper in keeping with the times. Today's presentation is what a paperless office will be in view of the course, in course of the time with growing and changing technology. In the concept of less paper office, many of us are not very well versed with the growing technology. Even the courts are not. As we get along, the sea changes in our system, we also will have to match up with the times. I hope that this presentation will be serious assistance to all my friends and colleagues to look at the future of our system. In this endeavor, we express our sincere thanks to Sri Chandruday Singh, senior advocate, Ms. Anjali Chauhan, and their team for organizing this webinar. We hope that you will take advantage of the deliberations and presentations. I would request Sri Nima Dave, coordinator of today's webinar, to lead us to being with less paper. With a small request, please don't apply the less paper idea to currency. That is not the purpose of this seminar. Thank you. I now request Sri Dushyant Dave, our president, to say a few words.
Good evening, friends. On behalf of the Supreme Court Bar Association, my Vice President, Mr. Kailash Vasudev, my Acting Secretary, Rohit Pandey, my office bearers, my Executive Committee, especially my lecture subcommittee led by Mr. Chandruday Singh, and outstanding contributors into that, Ms. Anjali Chauhan, Amrinder, Upender, and all who have really done a tremendous work to make this seminar successful. And looking to the number of participants, I feel very encouraged that really the bar is now looking forward to the future. Technology is something which is here to stay with us. Unfortunately, I must say you have a president who is technology challenged. So I have my serious reservations about adjusting to technology. But I am very happy that I have on my executive committee colleagues, including my vice president, who are extremely technology friendly. Particularly the guidance of Mr. Chandruday Singh is special, to be noted about this. And together we are all working to ensure that the Supreme Court Bar Association can really live up to the expectations of large number of members of the association to usher in a new era in their professional careers. I must also especially thank our two brilliant speakers today who are going to take us through the technology revolution, Devashish Baruka and Abhay Anturkar. If I think as and when Nobel Prize in Technology and Law is declared by the Nobel Institute, these two would be strong contenders. So I have no doubt that they will be able to, educate you brilliantly today. And I must therefore, on behalf of the SCBA and myself, thank them profusely from the bottom of my heart. Friends, thank you for being today with us. We are trying to reach out to you in as many ways as we can in these extremely difficult times. My committee is working very hard over time, even at the cost of their challenges to their personal health, in doing all that they can to help you out, whether it is in respect of dealing with the registry, filing problems, hearing problems, or in extending financial help to you, or even now in trying to help member friends to get COVID tests and hospitalization if necessary to be done. So the committee is really working extremely well, and it's an extraordinarily cohesive committee now, and I am proud of my colleagues on the committee, and I must personally thank each one of them for the kind of work that they are doing. I can tell you, friends, this work that these colleagues of mine are doing will be remembered for a long, long time, and therefore I would like you also to give your feedback, interact with them, guide us. We need help all the time. We don't expect that committee knows everything. So we would be happy to be guided by you, and your suggestions are always welcome. Pursuant to my communication to you about e-hearings as well as physical hearing, almost 160 of you, 170 of you have communicated to me. I have read each one of them, and I intend to send another communication to you soon as to how we should go about. My only regret is that the Supreme Court, despite the repeated requests and resolutions by your committee to cancel the summer vacation, has yet again decided to declare 2 weeks of summer holidays. I don't know why, but apparently they have taken shelter under the resolution passed by SCBA to that effect. I feel little, I would say, disappointed. SCBA should have consulted us, because ultimately SCBA is the primary body, and SCBA should not have taken a line differing from the SCBA, because we are acting in the interest of all, including members of SCBA. We have respect for SCBA, and we expect SCBA to also respect us. And let us hope that such a misunderstanding in future does not happen, which can harm the welfare of our members. So I welcome you all, and I wish you a fantastic webinar this evening. Over to you all and the experts, Devashish Baruka and then Abhay Arturkar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Let me firstly thank the Supreme Court Bar Association for organizing this. I don't want to take up too much time of Mr. Baruka. For all our attendees, I must indicate that I play the role of a junior even here, and I will simply be nudging Mr. Baruka on to make the arguments for all our benefit. I believe Mr. Baruka has prepared a very comprehensive presentation, and I look forward to that. So before we go to the presentation, sir, Mr. Baruka, may I ask you, what motivated you to digitize your own chamber? Because that's a very big step for a lawyer. The amount of paperwork that we indulge in, it's not simple to digitize. So what led you to start the digitization process yourself?
Yeah, good evening, hello. Abhay, technology and computers has never been new to me. I think the first time I touched a keyboard and a PC was in 1994 in class 11th, when we had this PC with no hard disk at all. It was just 2 floppy drives. And from there onwards, my love for technology grew. So it was law and technology together as I proceeded. So even when I started my practice in 2001, I had been carrying a small gadget with, maybe a lot of people don't know, which we used to call as Palm Top. And it had all my data in terms of my research material, and I could have quickly accessed anything, even while moving within the court corridors. And I had been using technology right from day one. So the idea was that as and when the practice grew, as and when the paperwork grew, as and when we have more people in the office, everybody, each one is encouraged to use technology, use computers, and see in the best manner in which we can use computers for the purpose of a legal practice. Over the past few years, that definitely increased because we had better facilities in terms of internet, in terms of scanners, in terms of using iPad, in terms of better processors. So slowly but surely we kept moving. So the inclination towards computers has never been old for me. It's always been there. It's nothing new.
That's wonderful. But there is a certain amount of inertia that one has to break to sort of dive into technology. So can I now request you to make your presentation, because I believe that will help us understand how we could really break that inertia and challenge the status quo.
Absolutely. So the whole idea really is that we are trying to see how we can move from a office which is primarily using paper and files, and then shifting over from there to see how gradually we can move towards an office where we use lesser paper. It's not really about complete removal of paper immediately or in a short term, but really in terms of gradually moving. So permit me to share the screen and show the PPT right away. Yeah, can we see the screen? Is it clear?
Yes.
Okay. So that's towards a paperless law office. And I must say this is primarily for the appellate court practice and not really for the trial court, because that would contain a lot of the original documents, evidence, etc., which would not really happen at the appellate court level. So my presentation right now is more in terms of an appellate court practice. So presently a law office is what I call as is view, is this is how we operate a law office today. So we need to have a physical space where we are required to keep all the paper files, books, etc. There is a certain amount of security which is required to maintain those files. And here security means the practical part in terms of rodent attack or a water seepage or termite. So that's the kind of, and sometimes some original documents might be there. So that's one security which is required for the purpose of a regular law office. Whenever we have to share documents, it requires continuous addition of papers, be it in terms of serving copies to the other side or extra copies to the court or copies to the clients, arguing counsels, everywhere paper keeps adds on. To handle all this paper load, we require more persons in the office, maybe in terms of more clerks, more office boy, more typists. Then the work collaboration, and here I mean that if there's a file on which 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 people are working, every one of them would require to move over to a particular physical space, which really is the law office, the office of the advocate. And everybody has to move, sit together, and then work from there. Or suppose if somebody is briefing an arguing counsel, again, a physical movement is required for the purposes of going and briefing. So supply of paper copies and then physical movement to brief them. And there are heavy expenses involved in terms of real estate, in terms of maintaining a complete office, daily maintenance, shelves, interiors. Again, those files to be maintained in a proper manner. There is always a problem of limited accessibility. And I think during this COVID, this is one thing which we all have realized. A lot of our friends who have been living in the NCR region, but beyond the Delhi borders, have had troubles in terms of moving either to the Supreme Court chambers or their offices in Delhi and to access their files. So initially when we had the video conferencing started with the courts, a lot of people had troubles because of this limited accessibility. And of course, lastly, the colossal wastage of paper itself, which is something which at this point of time is continuing. And I think that is one of the reasons why the Supreme Court discontinued the practice of causeless printing and moved on completely to an online causeless system. So that's the as-is view. And what we mean by a paperless office is really that we have to understand that paper is nothing but a medium to store information. It's that information which is relevant for us. If there is no information on the paper, it's a complete valueless piece of paper for us. So it's the information we are really concerned about. So the approach is that you have a progressive reduction of maintaining papers in the office, while at the same time, the information which you want is intact. So the medium on which it is being stored is shifted from paper to an online medium. And that is the approach which one must look at in terms of moving towards a paperless office. And how we do it? The aim, number one, is to avoid paper input in office through external sources. I'll show in the next slide what the sources would be. So one is paper input in the office should be avoided or at least reduced to whatever possible. And then minimize paper generation in office. So we tend to, whatever we get in terms of email or even otherwise documents, we tend to take prints. We tend to continuously put it on paper in a folder. So that's the second part. One is avoiding paper input and second is minimizing paper generation. And these two are possible when we use the appropriate hardware and software, which is what I'll be indicating in the few slides ahead. The benefits of paperless office, it's the same as what the demerits was of having a paper office. One, I think the best thing is in terms of anywhere and anytime accessibility, which is something which I have been doing with the entire office of mine. We have been able to access all our files, any documents, anything from anywhere sitting across. And now, I mean, we have seen Mr. Salve now arguing from London. That's only because the paper, the information, not rather the paper, the information is now available at anywhere, anytime, easy search, collaborative working. Even if you have 4 or 5 people working online, one can easily work. Document sharing is easier, efficiency, cost effective, security of data. If you take the appropriate measures, is much easier. So now how to transform really, if today you have a law office which is substantially founded on paper or morely dependent upon paper, how do you move around in terms of paperless? So the first step is to assess the source of paper in your office. External sources, the first and primary source is the litigant, the client, who would get the records of the High Court, the lower court, the correspondences with the client. So that's the first, whenever a matter starts, that's the first input, an external source. Along with that, we get the original documents of certified copy of the judgment, wakalatnama, affidavit, board resolutions. Then comes the court. Court is another external source. So we have the court orders, office reports, the filing proofs, court notices. And then from the opposite party, we get the pleadings or letters or communications. So these substantially are the external sources which we need to take care of when the documents come in. The internal sources are when we create our own petition, our own annexures, when we start making copies for the other side or for filing purposes, or the correspondences, or even the rough paper which is generated out of all this itself is an internal source, or the advocate's own personal documents and records, or the office staff's bills, insurance papers, or it could be any of these papers. I'm not including books because really books at this point of time, though legal research online has come up in a big way, but still books is something I'm not connecting at this point of time. This is substantial in terms of how you can shift your filing, your e-files, your paper files into e-files. Now the paper management. So all this paper which is now being generated through external and internal sources. Number one, what should be our approach? I would urge any person who is wanting to shift over to a paperless office to first of all assess what's your paper load in your office. How many files do you have? Do you have 50 files? Do you have 100 files? Do you have 500? Do you have 1,000? See what the kind of files you have and what state those files are, and create a roadmap that this is what the numbers which you need to take care of before you are able to shift. And accordingly, you have to assess what the requirement of your hardware is and what is the requirement of your software. It will also depend upon the number of people working in your office. And all those would add up to be able to create a roadmap. Third and very, very important approach is that slowly you have to introduce the e-culture in your office, especially for your clerks, typists, and office staff. So far as lawyers are concerned, they would surely adopt in a way. But the real concern is really the office staff. And I've been hearing a lot from the clerks and from the typists that possibly they feel that their job has come to a complete end, especially the clerks. That now with the e-filing, nobody requires a clerk. A lawyer is able to get everything typed, upload online, and then to be able to fill in the data, pay the court fee, and then that's it. So the clerks are no more required. There are huge concerns about the big photocopying machines all across the Supreme Court. What will happen to those? You will have to really introduce that security in your office staff that they would not be dispensed with. They still have importance, and how they have importance in terms of even maintaining this entire paperless office. You need people. Yes, they'll have to learn more. They need to now come up with new techniques. They need to now adopt the technology and learn how to do e-filing, how to have online payments done, how to be able to work on PDF files, how to be able to send emails, serve upon through emails. So you have to encourage your office staff to be able to adopt that e-culture. You have to encourage your clients to adopt a paperless interaction. Encourage them to send the documents by scanning and email it to them. Or if they come with the entire bunch, make sure you scan them and you send it back with the records, because as Supreme Court or Appellate Court, we don't need those original records. So external source, restrict the entry of paper in your office. And internal source, avoid printing of documents in the office. That's something which you need to really have as a thumb rule. And so far as the closed cases are concerned, which you can assess right away. Sometimes we do have the closed cases which are disposed of and still we maintain those papers for a few years. The time has come, you should scan all those papers and remove it from their office, so that itself will reduce a lot of clutter. Email a set of papers to the client, return the originals and shift it to a closed folder. Just dispose of as many physical files as you can. So that's the larger picture of a paper management. Now if we come upon the hardware, I think hardware is something which I found to be the simplest because you don't need much of hardware. The first and obvious requirement is a simple personal computer or a laptop in your office. Second is one, we can have a combination of a smaller but a very effective scanner and a printer. So that's the scanner and a printer. So that's the first option one can look at. Just have a combination of this as a part of your hardware, which does your work. Again, you have to assess this roadmap depending upon what your requirement is. Or on the right side, you can have this big scanner photocopier machine, which does the entire work. Again, this photocopier machine, we don't really require now, considering the situation that I'm asking you not to print anymore, not to photocopy. So I'm not sure how much this particular big machine would really help at this point of time. But any high speed and heavy duty scanner with a basic printer would do the job. What is most important I find today now is that
अनम्यूट क्या होता है?
what is required now is an excellent internet connection. We have a lot of options from DSNL to cable to fiber. And considering that we all are facing a lot of trouble in terms of our virtual court hearings, one of the suggestions is that one needs to have a good fiber optic internet service provider. And I've checked a lot of these prices, which are quite much cheaper than the regular cable operators, internet service providers give. So that's something which one needs to look into in terms of hardware, a PC, a scanner, a printer, and an excellent internet service provider. Now we look onto the office integration, the software part. The foremost important is a document management software. Now that is something where you have all the documents at one place. You're able to have your MS Office. So you have an office in terms of your MS Word, and that is Microsoft 365 provides for that kind of an option. Another option is G Suite, that is the Google option, where they have all this word processing facilities at one place in Google Suite that connects also with the cloud storage of OneDrive or Google Drive. Now see, OneDrive or Google Drive or Dropbox or Box is the place, the storage where all your files will integrate and come at one place. And particularly for Microsoft 365 or G Suite, the benefit is that even if you have 10 people in the office or 20 or 30 people, everybody can have a password access to that particular system. He or she is able to connect, get the documents, work on it, and then put it back over there. So that's something which really works at a virtual level, and everybody across, even if they're sitting at 10 places across the country or even across the world, they can access and they can get the entire data. So the idea really is have the documents scanned completely, put it up on a particular cloud storage, make sure everybody has got access to it and start working. Dictation software. Now that's something, again, a lot of people have been asking about it. So they have these 3 or 4 options about dictation software. One is Dragon Legal, that is a specialized Dragon software for dictation, and for lawyers specifically, it has been built up. MS Word itself has a very good inbuilt dictation. I believe it works pretty well. Google Docs has its own. iOS, the Apple products have their own inbuilt voice dictation. So those things, the dictation software, in case you are wanting to go for dictation online, that is something what can opt for the purposes of typing down or getting your petition. Creating e-petitions from MS Word documents. So once the MS Word document is created, you need to have PDF editing tools. These are the few options which I could pull out from the net. Adobe and Foxit is what I have personally used, and they seem to be quite good. Both Adobe, of course, Adobe I find to be extremely expensive, but I'd advise that everybody should download free trials, which are generally for 15 days to a month, and assess that what exactly is your requirement, your office requirement, depending upon the load you have and depending upon the facilities which each of these are providing. But this is where we are moving from a complete scanning of documents to be able to draft the petition through the integrated system, either through dictation and then creating MS Word, so that finally you have a PDF format which you can upload in for the e-filing system. The next portion would be in terms of making notes, annotations, highlights, and hyperlinking in these e-petitions. Now, these are used for court arguments. We have these 3 or 4 options again. But personally, I think Liquid Text is something, and I'll show you a few slides of Liquid Text I've been using quite regularly. It's an excellent software. Drawboard, again, is a very good software. Adobe and Foxit is more for the purposes of creating the PDF, and you can do a limited highlighting, hyperlinking, but with the kind of working we are used to do, like making notes on the file by handwriting, or to be able to put flags on a file, that's something which we are used to do. So that probably would be used more in terms of the first 2, Liquid Text and Drawboard, which you can use. But these are very, very effective tools which can be used for the purposes of what we are doing already on paper. The regular backup of all data is extremely critical. In fact, this is an advantage what we have over the paper office. We don't keep 5 copies of our petitions and keep it at 5 different physical locations. We have at one location, but in case, God forbid, something goes wrong, then the entire of that data might get destroyed. So here is where the data, the soft data, can be quite comfortably mirrored real time on alternative cloud storage. So you can have something like a OneDrive, and you can also at the same time parallelly push it off to the Dropbox or Box. You have manual backups which you can do on basically on an external hard disk or on a CD or on a pen drive. Then next is a case management tool, which again I would urge is something which would be required now, or maybe a lot of people are already using it. So in terms of, there are these 2 private players, ProVakil and Silicon, and then we have Supreme Court's official mobile app itself. And what we had seen the other day, what the e-committee, Justice Chandrachud has offered us the demo of the new e-filing system. There also, it seems the entire case management tool has been incorporated in a pretty good way. So one can be hopeful that that itself would do the job what we want to do. But this is again very important in terms of which are the matters which is going to be listed, the office orders, reports, so immediately to be able to have that all in hand at one place is something should be very effective. So that's another case management tool which is relevant for our purposes. Now in terms of managing online files, now how do we manage? We are used to having a physical folder where the petition goes, the orders goes in the front, letters circulate, then we have the office reports, we have receipts, we have proofs, then we have counters, rejoinders, IES coming. So we are quite comfortable in terms of adding in those terms, those physical files. So here is something which we need to adopt a bit in terms of having a systematic access to all data. That is what is the aim right now, that we should be able to have access to all the data in a single computer folder. An approach I would suggest is to create a standard protocol, and which is again everybody in the office should be able to know that maybe for a new file or a client or a forum, whatever the system in your office is, to have appropriate numbering, and then to have a master folder for every PC for a particular case with multiple subfolders. This is where it will help you in terms of creating this kind of different layers of files under a single case. So we have correspondences subfolder, client documents, draftings, research material and judgments. E-filing would have a separate subfolder. Court and arguments would have a separate subfolder. So each of these would make it systematic for you and your colleagues to be able to manage the files and the letters and the documents, whatever is coming continuously, or email, or what you are generating electronically, to be able to put it in a proper format so that you are able to easily access. Just to give an instance of what exactly when I mean by managing online files, I'll just show one of the folders which I have been using. So this is one of the cases for which I have made the 6 subfolders. So first is client documents. So this is where I put all whatever the client documents come in. So affidavit, impugned judgment, wakalatnama, writ appeal record, and writ record. So either if these are come through the email, it's good enough. If they come in original documents with me in physical form, I scan it and I put it over here and I return the documents. But for affidavit, impugned judgment, and wakalatnama, because these are something which eventually will be required to file in original in the court. The second subfolder is the correspondences. So any correspondence going to Supreme Court or coming back or between clients, everything can come at one place over here. Third is the drafting. So the moment that client documents come in, and we start with drafting, so we can have the annexures. So all these, one thing you have to remember, all these folders are accessible by your typist, by your clerk, and by everybody in the office. So the moment the typist knows that, okay, the documents have come in, he knows what to type, he starts typing and he starts putting it over here in the form of annexures. Meanwhile, the SLP drafting is going on, and while the drafting is going on, could have version 1, version 2, and finally the final SLP. Generally, when we are drafting, we're also continuously researching, pulling out judgments and the relevant laws. So another subfolder for research materials can be put. So we'll have all the judgments, whichever we have, we will be using it, at least at that point of time. The relevant laws can be put over here. So that's another subfolder to create. Then comes the period of e-filing. So that's the 5th subfolder I would suggest to have an e-filing, where we have a final e-SLP, which is created. And this is the SLP. Now, if you see the difference over here, the SLP is what I note, and this is e-SLP, just to clearly distinguish for everyone that e-SLP means it is something which has now been uploaded. And it is there, and that's the final version. With that, of course, now with Supreme Court, we have 3 things which are coming up. One is the court fee paid, which we can pull down while we are filing. One is the document upload proof, that when we upload, there is a particular form which we can download to show that the document has been uploaded. and then the filing proof that finally when it is filed, there's a provisional application which comes, and again, a document is generated by the Supreme Court e-filing website, which goes over here. The next step is in terms of defect layering. So if there are some defects which come in, we can have a subfolder under e-filing for defect layering. And the defect list is there. The defects are all cleared up, and one by one we can put it, and then the entire defect list with all the defects are uploaded. So this is where the entire, like I'll just show you one of this probably, the defect list, how I had been using it. So this is the actual thing which I'd used a few days back. So the entire, the defects, faults, and the notification and how it was removed. And then in the same PDF, I'll have all the documents below to show that this is all the defects which has been cleared. So that's defect. And then it so happens there could also be a caveat. So there'll be a caveat. So caveat, there is the Supreme Court now issues an email. It sends an email saying this is a particular caveat. This is the email ID. This is the name number of the AOR. You please serve a copy. So this is one which I had served a copy recently. And so this is the email which we got, caveat notice, so and so. And then SLP is filed below, so and so, SLP is available. Now, another very interesting thing is if you start using this, you don't even have to attach the entire SLP. It might be 20 MB, 30 MB. You can just send a link that please download it from there. And then the confirmation that yes, I have received the SLP copy. And that again goes under a subfolder just for the purposes. And of course, when we caveat service is done, we have to again upload it onto the Supreme Court website to show that it's been done. So that's another document. So then systematically you put all this e-filing document at one place without disturbing the other folders at all. Finally, when this final SLP is done, then we put it in a court and arguments last folder where the eSLP final which comes by. This comes with all the file notings. Now this is where you can use documents like liquid text or drawboard and we can make your changes. So this original file remains as it is in case you have to serve somebody or email it to the client. But this is where your entire notings, etc., which comes by. So this is the structure which generally I've been following and which has been working quite well with me. So that's the managing online files. Okay, so liquid text is something which I have been using. So I thought I'll just share a bit with you. A lot of people have been asking me about how to make notes. Liquid text, almost a month back, it was available only as an Apple product, but now it's available even for Windows. So one can have, this is just a screenshot, the entire software I can't show. But if you see, I have made these small little notes, I can highlight and I can write by hand and I can connect pointers to a certain page. Now that's the beautiful part of liquid text, but otherwise I haven't seen in many, much of the softwares. So if it's impugned judgment over here, I can just pick up and connect it over here. So on the next time, anytime if I want to see impugned judgment, I have to just, so I might be anywhere in the SLP, I have to just tap this dot and it comes over straight over here. Similarly, suppose for judgments, now SCC provides PDF where we can't really make notes otherwise on an Acrobat PDF, but I can highlight in liquid text all this. So suppose in a particular case, we had made judgments on retroactive operation of a statute. There's an old judgment, old case. And all the judgments are put at one place for the convenience of the judges, but I had put all this specifically with these connections, relevant pages, paras, wherever, whichever page. So as you can do, you can make your notes, you can highlight, and you can also do all these connections. So that's something which could be very useful in terms of arguments. Similarly, if you see in this particular case, I had almost 20 documents, around 10 to 12 SLPs together. So all the documents came at this one place. All the, as I would click, the files would come and I can make notes, I can make by handwriting, I can put paragraph numbers and keep connecting these dots with that particular page. So that way, this is how, as simple in terms of making your own notes, even if you're used to making notes on paper, you can do it over here quite easily. Standardization of file names. This is something which will be extremely critical in my view. You can't really mess up in terms of having different names when you're naming a file or a folder or subfolder. You will have to have some kind of standardization, and which should be again taught to all the office staff and everyone in the office, so that it's much easier to be able to search and retrieve, and at least the predictability is there. So like for instance, what I've been doing is, so for a master folder, I just put file number, the quote, and then this versus this. Under drafting subfolder, it can be something like SLP, ESLP, etc. You find a lot of naming conventions online. I would urge you to go go do a bit of research and see how best you can name files. Because if you don't do this, this can bound to create a lot of confusion, and it can even turn out to be a complete disaster if you're not able to even locate the files which you have put up. If the files keep going in terms of 500, 1,000, 1,500, to be able to locate, you need to adopt a system which you can remember and also consistently follow. Then some additional tools and tips is, one is tablet. A lot of people again have been thinking about tablets in terms of using iPad or Surface Pro, which is an excellent option. Both of them are good, and they're good for easy mobility, accessibility of your files. So if you have an iPad and if you connect onto Office 365 and also with a OneDrive, you're able to access your entire office anywhere you want. You don't even need to go over back to your office any point of time. You can have complete access, and not only access, you can work as easily as you would work sitting in an office. E-filing offered by, so learning and training at this point of time is extremely critical. E-filing is something of Supreme Court, which I've been myself doing e-filing for the past 1 month to just learn each and every aspect. And I think it's now very, very comfortable in terms of e-filing. There could be a bit of teething problems here and there. But like last night, I filed a SLP around 10 o'clock in the night. By 3 o'clock, I had the SLP number registered. It couldn't get faster. So definitely things are much speedier, provided you are able to just follow and learn and spend some time on it and learning. And then you need to train your office staff. There's this small thing which I always tell people, and especially the younger lawyers, I would urge, please, if possible, learn typing. I had learned typing when, again, I was in class 11th, and that has given me a huge help in terms of using technology in a big way. And it's much easier now to learn when you go online. There are a lot of online tools. Encourage your staff, your clerk, everyone to use online storage, scanning, standardization. Unless your office staff are with you, it will be very difficult to be able to shift over to this new system. I believe in the new e-filing system, there is a facility for digital signature certificates. So you can digitally sign all your petitions. So that's something one can obtain at some point of time. All payment of court fees now online. So you need to have a debit card, credit card to be able to have an actual e-filing system. So having said this, I'll just quickly show what I have been doing in my office. So this is what I have been doing. So I have been sitting in Delhi. One of my associates is in Ghaziabad, one in Noida, one in South Delhi, one in Yamunanagar. The typist sits in East Delhi in his office, in his house. So I've been using Microsoft 365. And I must tell, this is something which I shifted just around a month back. I was using earlier something else, but I'm finding this to be much more productive with OneDrive and a Foxit Phantom PDF and a Liquid Text. These 4 things are really helping me a lot in terms of running the office virtually. And the hardware in office, I have Lenovo all-in-one PCs, a Canon high-end scanner, but that was there for much before, and a fiber optic network. So I had earlier a normal network, internet network. Just again, recently I shifted to fiber optic. It's been extremely helpful, especially when I'm there for virtual court hearings. And whoever is working from home just needs a PC or a laptop, an internet connection. And the third thing is a neutral space. That's something which is now coming up in a big way across the world, that if you're working from home, you need a space where you're not being disturbed. We have been hearing stories where Supreme Court, one of the honorable judges said that you please switch off your mic because I can hear somebody crying in the background. So that's a neutral space which would be required and which we have been doing in a big way. So that's what I have at this point of time. I look forward to any questions coming up. So over to you, Abhay.
Thank you, sir. I think that substantially deals with the technical aspect of today's topic. I do want to discuss some human issues though. My first question to you is, and of course, before I ask you a question, I want to indicate to all our attendees that they may also raise questions using the Q&A tab in the app that we're using, so that we can put that to the speaker at the end of this discussion. Sir, my first question to you is about the e-culture that you spoke about. Now, I believe that perhaps being in a situation where you print out an SLP and then scan it again and then store the soft copy for your own benefit is slightly counterproductive. How do you propose to make it more efficient where the printing out is completely dispensed with and make it a completely soft copy based, a software based system? Do you foresee this happening anytime soon, or do you do it in your chamber?
Okay, so far as that is concerned, we have completely stopped printing any document for the purposes of e-filing. So whenever documents come in, anyway, the Supreme Court has a practice of typing. There is a requirement that you should type the documents. So all the documents are typed on MS Word. And after that, the petition anyway is typed on MS Word. We merge everything, we put page numbering on MS Word. And after it's done, we shift over and create into a PDF. And once the PDF is done, we add in the digital signatures. We insert the affidavits and wakalatnama, which has come on email. And then we put into a single PDF, and that is straight away filed. So there has been absolutely zero printing in my office since the e-filing has started.
So what I gather is you're promoting the e-filing system rather than using the physical filing.
Yes, and I think personally, why I'm promoting it, because it is much faster. As I said, now the cases, maybe the cases are less, so maybe it's going faster, but clearly the things, the way the response from the registry has been coming. I filed a caveat a few days back. Within 2 hours, I got a response, okay, your caveat is registered. So I think that entire interaction with the registry at a physical level and running around in the registry to be able to see in terms of going to section officer, to be able to go to see the registrar, etc. I think all that can be done away with if you're able to carefully analyze how the system is working and to follow it properly. At this point of time, I'm getting calls from the registry saying that the court fee is missing. Can you just pay the court fee, click a photograph of the screenshot, and then just WhatsApp it to us? Again, I'm presuming that the work is less, so they're able to do it now. But still, the system definitely is improving.
Right. You raised another interesting point about e-culture in your office and training your staff and your associates to adopt it. Now, one, as you indicated, there is often a resistance to disturb the status quo from the staff as well. So how does one go about recalibrating the position of the staff, recalibrating the status of the staff in the office to help them, to enable them to accept technology more willingly? I also want to, before you answer this, also want to ask you a follow-up question from the perspective of the client. In my experience, a client is far more at ease with a paper in his hand, albeit an order of dismissal. He is at ease with that being in his hand rather than an email being sent. So how does one persuade the client to accept the culture as well?
Okay. So far as office staff is concerned, in my view, the only concern they would have is that they are not being dispensed with, that there is still a value they have for the office. And if you're able to give them enough assurance and security that you do have that value, that coming with computers or using technology would not dispense them. We can recall the days of when the online banking started, and there was this huge issue about the bank employees wondering whether they'll be thrown out and everything would be done by computers and they'll be not required anymore. And today we see, if you step into UCO back in Supreme Court, everybody, all the employees of all age, they're all happily using computers. So one has to slowly and surely develop that kind of change mindset and attitude, even in the office staff, that yes, you need to learn this. And once you learn, you're not being dispensed with, rather you are creating value to the office by learning. So far as the clients are concerned, you are right in terms of how their approach would be. But again, that depends upon what kind of a client you have. Suppose if it's corporate. So most of my corporate clients are too happy just sending emailing papers. I have also appear for a few states. Again, I've been noticing since the lockdown, at least these states are continuously sending me just scanned papers. But let's take a situation of somebody, an individual client from a rural area. Yes, he would come with all the documents in your office, but that's why you have to minimize in terms of input in your office. You can't stop the client from getting, but you can stop from accepting the paper and keeping in your office. You can scan it and return it back to him. You don't have to retain the document unless it's the original wakalatnama, affidavit, or an impugned judgment. So that's how something one can work. And then to be able to, if you feel that the client can accept your request of accepting only sort of emails or scanned documents, you can do so.
Right. You spoke about being tech savvy right from the beginning, right? Even before you entered the profession. But many of us are not so tech savvy. So take a situation where a senior lawyer or a mid-level lawyer who already has a large bunch of papers in his office wants to move from a physical office to a digital office. Where does he begin? Where does he start? And are there any systems or procedures which are required to be introduced? You did discuss about the filing, the naming protocols that you follow. How does one go about setting these systems in place, putting these procedures in place?
See, if one already has a huge office and a lot of paperwork, I would encourage them to actually look for a bit of professional help in the beginning. We have a lot of these service providers who would offer to scan all their papers, put it in a certain manner. So what they can do is, first of all, assess what their workload, paper load is, to be able to have at least the standard protocols in place, call upon a professional help who is able to scan all the papers, put it up on a cloud storage in the proper standardized format which you would have told him, and then from there take it forward. To be able to attempt oneself immediately will be a bit difficult. I would not suggest that they should get a scanner on their own, get their office staff on board and ask them to start scanning all the papers. But henceforth, they can adopt that culture. Till where they are, they need a bit of professional help. But after that, henceforth, they can adopt the culture and see in whatever best manner they can reduce paper input or paper generation in the office.
Just a follow-up question on this. Paper input and paper generation are largely dependent on how the courts are functioning. So as long as the court continues to be a paper-based court, do you really see paper going out of the picture?
See, the way things are happening, I have a feeling, let's take an example of Delhi High Court. A lot of the judges over there moved to e-court where there are no papers in the court hall at all and it's all a screen. Now, as those judges move forward, so today in terms of how the COVID situation has come up, yes, at this point of time, Supreme Court judges are not using computers or screens for the purpose of reading their files. But at the same time, I believe the e-committee has been attempting to train them. And there has been attempts, at least in some of the courts, to use screen or a laptop or an iPad to read papers. But at the same time, when you are sitting in your office, or even if you are going to court, and if you are carrying an iPad and you're wanting to argue, and if you are comfortable with the system you're using, then I don't see any reason why the judges would not be equally comfortable. It's just that it's you have to change an attitude and be comfortable in terms of marking, hyperlinking, to be able to go to different pages, to be able to use the right software. And once a lawyer is comfortable, probably the things can move in the right direction.
So you also spoke about security of the documents in the physical office. When we upload documents on the cloud or when we upload documents on our hard disks, there is also an aspect of protecting the data, protecting the privacy of the client. How do we protect these aspects?
Okay, so now generally when we have this cloud storage, there is normally a multi-layered security system which is provided in terms of your password, in terms of your OTP. Now, when I said about security in physical space, that was more in terms of data which won't be stolen, which would be destroyed. Now, so far as data on the online platform is concerned, which you are indicating is something which could be stolen. Now, that's something which the platforms which you are operating from or the platform which you are opting for is very important. And generally, we pick up a platform which itself is so secure that data theft from those platform like the one which I've indicated, which generally people would be using and which would not have at least the threat. You see, the threat in terms of data theft is always there. The credit cards data is being stolen, etc. Nobody can say it's 100% proof system. But at the same time, the percentage or maybe the degree to which the threat can be reduced is only in terms of picking up a right platform. We can't really, on our own as lawyers, start building a multi-layered protection for ourselves. And again, we have to understand that our data probably would not be as sensitive as probably we might think it is. Suppose there's some extremely sensitive data, you can keep it separately in your offline systems. Don't upload it onto a cloud storage, maintain it on a separate computer or laptop. Or you can move a step ahead, take IT professional, create your own server in your system. Suppose it's a huge law firm, and I'm sure law firms are doing, where you have extremely sensitive data which you don't want to put on a regular cloud storage. Create your own server within your office and upload all the data over there with multiple layers of security.
But would this not come with an additional expenditure and perhaps additional manpower in the sense of in the form of a IT professional or a system administrator?
Absolutely, you're right. So it depends really upon the kind of work you're doing. If you're running a law firm with 200 lawyers, maybe you can afford that. But so far as I'm concerned, if I have 10 people in my office with the kind of work I am doing, at least I'm pretty comfortable, and I'm quite sure that the data theft, the degree of the data theft, the threat is quite less, and something which I would not want to spend money on.
Just a sec, Abhay, I have a question for Devashish.
Yeah.
Devashish, you rightly spoke about an expert to guide people like us, novices into transition into this digitization and computerization. Plus, there are costs of hardware and software. Now, is it possible that the Supreme Court Bar Association can find these experts, negotiate with them, the technology supplier, the software supplier, and get for the members the best of the, at the best rates, and also provide some kind of a training to members who may need it, because the cost is going to be a very serious issue. And when you respond to this question, you may also inform the members as to what digitization committee has been doing without giving details of the names, so that members know that work has already begun in that direction. Thank you.
So if you remember, in 2015, when you were the president, we had introduced the e-library for the SCBA members. At that time, for all the legal softwares, we had undertaken a very serious negotiation with all the legal software providers, SEC, Manupatra, and all the others, and we got some fantastic, I would say, deals for the benefit of the members. Now, similarly over here, with the kind of hardware and the software required, in fact, I would urge the SCBA that they as an association could actually regulate, pick up the best of the software and hardware available. Like, let's take an instance of Adobe. Adobe Pro DC PDF editor is one of the finest which I have been using, but it's also extremely expensive. It's really expensive. As a license fee monthly, it's very high. The competitor Phantom, Foxit Phantom, is relatively very, very low. But if you are able to connect with any of them and to be able to get a good deal for the members, that's something which should be very, very beneficial. And now with today's situation, the way the e-library was done, probably it's required, it should be done. As regards with respect to the specialized or customized softwares to be built up for the benefit of the members, the SCBA's digitization committee has been in touch with a few private players. We had interactions. We have been having regular e-meetings to be able to analyze that what are the requirements, and we have been telling them. They have been coming up with their solutions. And as Dave sir has indicated, that's something which is the work is in progress at this point of time. And I'm really hopeful that if that thing works, that will be a big, big help for all of us.
In fact, Mr. Dave, that was a very well-timed question, because we have a lot of comments coming from the attendees, who are asking about the role that bar associations can play in helping lawyers digitize. Mr. Baruka, one more very relevant question I feel is about the amount of expenditure that one would have to face while digitizing. Let's assume a small office, maybe which has 5 to 6 associates and a senior. Can you give us a ballpark figure of how much it would cost to do all that we spoke about today?
Okay, so then let me just pick up for this purpose some specifics of a hardware and software, because there has to be some presumptions that we will pick up a certain hardware and a certain software. So now if we have, suppose, 5 people, and we pick up personal computers for each one of them. So good all-in-one personal computers comes in the range of 35 to 40,000. So that's one cost we're looking at. A good high-speed scanner, standalone scanner, would come around 30 to 40,000. So that's another cost we're looking at. And a basic printer, since we'll be minimizing printing, I don't want a high-speed printer. So basic printer would come within the range of 10,000. So that's the hardware. Apart from that, the internet connection. Now there are a couple of these extremely good fiber optic service providers where we can say, suppose even at like I have this connection of 150 Mbps. Okay, and this connection is maybe for $1,000 per month. One can even have for a lesser 100 Mbps for 700, 800. So that's the kind of recurring cost we're looking. Now in terms of software, what we have been using is Microsoft 365. And that's something which is enough for 5 to 10 people in office. That's a monthly license of around 5,000 rupees. That includes the entire MS Office, 6 terabyte of OneDrive, that is the cloud storage, and Outlook. So OneNote. So these are excellent facilities for the purpose of just 5,000 rupees. The real concern really is the PDF. PDF Phantom is something which I recently switched over to. So that's again a one-time license of around 6,000 to 7,000. But you go for Adobe, it's pretty expensive. It's almost 1,600 to 2,000 per month. So that's another outgo I'm looking at. If somebody's wanting to use liquid text, that's 700 to 800 one-time purchase. So that's not much about it. But again, if you're looking at a tablet, a Surface Pro or an iPad, that would have additional cost. And that ranges really from 40 to 50,000 to a lakh and a half, depending upon what, which particular model you want to pick up. So that's really is the kind of cost we're looking at.
Right.
Therefore, if I may say so just for a moment, you're looking at a cost on software of anywhere between 10 and 15,000 rupees a month.
No, sir. Microsoft 365 is 5,000 rupees per annum.
I thought you said per month.
No,
But
no,
about Adobe and the like, all put together, including scanning facilities, you're easily 10,000 bucks a month for
No,
5
sir. Now,
people office.
one can avoid Adobe. One can pick up Foxit Phantom, which is just 6,000 for the lifetime license. So that's a one time. So it's really 5,000 per annum for software.
So therefore, you're looking at an average, what is the average cost on software? Because the hardware costs, if you take between 30 and 40,000 a computer, 5 computers is 2 lakhs of rupees.
Yes.
Scanner is extra.
Yes.
Maintenance is extra. Running costs are extra. Then you have security software. So you're looking for I'm asking you in the perspective of all our viewers who are here.
Yes, sir.
So you're looking at a software cost anywhere between 5 and 10,000 rupees a month. In addition to that,
software wouldn't be that much. As I
All
said,
right.
software really is around 5,000 to 6,000 per annum, not more than that.
all right, if it's 5 to 6,000, it's a reasonable figure. Your cost of basic equipment goes to anywhere between 50,000 per head.
Correct.
Because depending on the number of people you are using.
That's it.
The third part of it is that insofar as security hardware is concerned, that is where a matter of concern comes in, even for a small lawyer's office. You see, in the old days, papers used to be stolen in physical form from the office of the other side for purposes of evidence. They used to be mutilated, they used to be taken away, the court clerks used to be bribed. Today, what is the assurance that the information available in an office's platform, I use the word platform because that is your own server or your own computer, will not be handed out to somebody else? How do you protect that? There is no positive answer to my mind which anyone has. Here is the problem which is going to take place in the long term. This data is permanent. It can be doled out even much later in point of time and years to anybody who needs it at the cost of somebody else. That's a litigation in the family. You've come to a settlement today. Tomorrow the youngsters pick up that, we want to revive this litigation. Now what happens? How do you secure it? So these are areas which one will have to look at on the software platforms because these are troublesome areas to which there are no answers so far.
Sir, I completely agree with you on that. And that's why I started by saying that for trial court practice, we really have to have a completely different set of softwares and security and thinking. For appellate court, by the time it comes to appellate court, so we all know that the documents are already there as a part of the lower court trial record. So there's something, so you're on mute, sir.
The information is on your hard disk. It's in perpetuity. So even if the person who created the office is gone, the information is available. You've got to think of a lot of things in this area. Physical form documents, you can return to the client, say, yeah, boss, it's yours, take it away. What do you do about this? Can you obliterate it? You cannot. Sure, please.
So there are a large number of very reliable software programs which securely destroy electronic data.
Okay, so therefore, that is what I want Debashish to address us very briefly. Or you can tell us.
So maybe before Debashish, if I can quickly just name one. So on Mac, there is a software called Clean My Mac. There's a similar software called Clean My PC, which has a feature to shred the virtual documents. And that is a more secure way of removing the data. And also, Mr.
Sorry.
Baruka has something to add.
You have the cleanup programs, there's no doubt about it. You have the cleanup programs available to you.
Right. Um,
So-
can I ask one more question? This is from one of the attendees. This is more particularly in the context of the software that you refer to, liquid text. Now, for something like liquid text, where you can annotate virtual documents, what is the kind of hardware that you would require to enable it to, and to enable yourself to use it to its optimum?
Okay, so you'd require something with a touch screen. So it could be either iPad with Apple Pencil, or it could be a Surface Pro, which also has got a stylus or a pen, a digital pen. So you need that, only then you'll be able to use it. Unless so the liquid text feel is to replace the feel of when you're writing on a paper. So everything you write with a pen or a pencil, a digital pen or a pencil on a paper, you make your notes, you make your highlightings, and you connect it with different pages. So instead of a bookmark, really you connect the dots and to be able to go from page to page conveniently. So that's what the minimum hardware required really would be touchscreen with a digital pen.
Right. Let me just ask you one last question, sir, from one of our attendees. This is specifically in the context of converting Word documents to PDF without printing. Like I indicated to you, many of us have a tendency to print it out and then scan it and upload it again. How does one go about converting it directly to a PDF document and eradicate printing completely?
MS Word provides this facility now, where when you go for printing in MS Word, there is also facility of saving it as a PDF. So you straight away save it as a PDF instead of printing it and then again scanning it. That's a duplication process.
Right.
MS Word itself provides that facility now.
Right. All right. I think we have covered a large theme of questions, a substantial number of questions from the common themes that I'm seeing. So I would now, unless Mr. Baruka has something more to say, I would now request the members of the Bar Association to take over again.
Just one last thing I would like to request everyone. Now that we have the internet with all the facilities over there in terms of going to tutorials, so please go and do a bit of search. We have enough time right now with the courts partially under lockdown. So go online, do all your research. And in case like liquid text or anything, any software, you have YouTube tutorials. You may want to go and do a bit of your own exploration to be able to see what is best for you.
I have one question, Devashish, for you. Will this transition to computerization, digitization, will it lead to more transparency in the judicial system in court hearings? Will it reduce the overall costs? And will it better the standards in our profession?
So I believe it will do. Let's see if in terms of transparency, really, where there is, I'm not transparency. Let's see in the registry, the transparency and the kind of work. As I said that earlier, I was told that to get a certified copy, and this is sometime in late 90s, it used to entail certain expenses. And then the technology came about, with the result that it was much easier for a client to be able to download a copy of the order, and if you have a certified copy, to be able to get certified copy in a much easier manner. So it was much faster, much efficient, and definitely much more transparent in terms of information availability. So now today, so
Take for example, listing of matters. There is a lot of grievances in the bar about listing of matters. So will that become much more transparent?
okay. So far as listing is concerned, it could go both ways, sir. Now I think because people were having a physical interaction with the registry, maybe they were more comfortable in terms of why the matter was being listed or not listed. Now people feel they're only staring at a screen. So let's take a situation when a mentioning slip is moved on email and a SMS comes back saying it's rejected. So I have no way of finding out why it was rejected, what it was rejected. But at the same time, I must say that the system goes faster now, because if I'm sending something across, at least people are responding, and maybe that the reasons for rejection could be tricky. I mean, I really don't know why it was done so, but still the system definitely is improving in terms of people working more efficiently, in terms of having lesser human interaction. So people are able to people are able to send across the information in a better manner, and the registry people responding much quicker than it was earlier.
Abhay, if you don't have any question, then can we request Anjali to do the vote of thanks, please?
Certainly, sir. Certainly, sir.
I request Ms. Anjali Chauhan to kindly give her vote of thanks.
Thank you, Shri Devashish Barupa sir. Thanks, Abhay Antukar. Thanks, our president and vice president sir, and senior executive members also, and other office bearers. Thank you to the webinar. Thanks to join this.
Okay, thank you very, very much.
Thank you,
On
sir.
behalf of SCBA, Devashish, Abhay, thanks a million. And it's been I think to me at least, it's been a eye-opener. It's been a tremendous experience, to learn. Of course, my vice president, Chandar, and all are excellent. And therefore, they really didn't need that education.
I want to just say one.
Yes.
I'd like to say two people who have not been thanked. One is Minesh Dubey, who is though he is sitting here as an office bearer, he is also a very active member of the lectures committee itself, which we tend to forget. But the person who deserves our greatest thanks and who has been completely hidden in the shadows is Nimai Dave, the young lawyer from Bombay High Court, who has helped us tremendously, who's actually done all the background work and has administered this entire webinar. And thank you very much, Nimai. Thank you all. Thank you to all the participants and the persons attending this webinar. I hope it will prove very useful to you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Just one
Goodbye.
small thing, just small thing on behalf of all of us. To all of you who are participating, we'll be presenting more of these programs, enabling you to use the facilities, your time, and share your experiences with us, that we can help you all in all that you are doing. Thank you very much.